I find it particularly funny how the main rhetoric that comes out of the Republican Party is that the government is too big. Ronald Reagan famously said in his infamous or famous, depending on who you ask, debate, you know, government isn't the solution, government is the problem. More government is bad. We want a small government. But, he ironically increased spending, and that's a whole nother can of worms that maybe we'll talk about in another day. But the main rhetoric Republicans will tell me is the idea that, you know, this big government is to blame. If Kamala Harris is elected, she'll turn into a communist and take out all of your money and, you know, socialize healthcare and things of that nature. But on the flip side, the common trope that, people like Bernie Sanders or Kamala Harris or um, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez like to push is that the corporations are to blame. I always think about AOC's dress that said "tax the rich" on it. You know, the idea that corporations are way too damn big. They're stealing all of our money. They're not paying us um, what we deserve and things like that. They're treating us unfairly. Capitalism is just making the rich richer and the poor poorer. You know, those two particular arguments to me are pretty funny in the sense that while I do respect and there is merit to each side of the argument that too much government and too much corporate greed is a thing, um, what people need to, in my opinion, realize is that a lot of times these corporations and the government are on the same team. Um, President Eisenhower in his farewell address talked about the idea of the military industrial complex, which is basically the idea that these corporations, like your Boeings, your Lockheed Martins, your BlackRocks of the world, are profiting off of war. War is a, profitable economical business. So much so that war is going to be continuing forever and ever as long as the money is there. And, the trope that corporations to blame or the government is to blame is ironic in itself because of the fact that I personally think that the government and the corporations are on the same team. And that's that classic, iron triangle that we all get taught that these politicians are funded by the corporations, and in exchange, these politicians will get the power that they want, and then they'll deliver, bills and legislation that favor what corporations have to say. And this is an issue that doesn't get brought up much in legacy media, the idea of corporate welfare, just handing out subsidies to, um, you know, corporations. A lot of people, and I would willing to bet more than 80 to 90% of people are against corporate welfare. It's an issue, a topic that unites us all. The idea that, corporations like Amazon are literally being funded by the government out of your tax dollar, yet they're not paying their fair share. Well, they're not even paying anything in federal taxes, yet they're making money out of the government. And that's something I think is very, very disgraceful, and I think something that we should address and we should adjust this idea of corporate welfare. You know, the idea of that bounce back between these corrupt politicians and corporations of the world. Um, some people like to argue that this is customary, that the idea that politicians will forever be bought and sold is sort of customary. There's nothing you can get rid of it. It's just to exist. And in my opinion, um, the idea that the natural fallacy that, you know, things exist because it's natural and there's not much we can do about it. I don't think that's a valid argument. There has to be some sort of solution to this in one way or another, at least a way to remedy the issue. Um, I think one way to remedy it or start at least tackling the issue would be bringing up this idea of corporate welfare, bringing it up to constituents and bringing it up to the voters. Um, but the problem is the people that control the legacy media are sometimes part of the problem. You think ABC News, Fox News, MSNBC, these are all owned by massive corporations like Disney, Universal, and the like. So the idea that a news anchor that is working for a corporation who benefits off of corporate welfare is going to sit there and tell you that corporate welfare is fundamentally bad and screwing over the American people, that is just not realistic. So I wish it was, an issue that people brought up more, because sometimes, you know, the real people who run this country are, hiding in plain sight. I'm not going to go all conspiracy theorist like Alex Jones to say that there's a globalist new world order of a bunch of men who meet out in the middle of the woods in California planning out the next move and picking the next president. That's not necessarily what I'm arguing, but I am arguing that there are people above these politicians, the corporations, and the government working together um, to provide this idea of corporate welfare that is just fundamentally screwing over the people. And you have these legacy news sites that are just running their 24/7, constant echo chambers of, you know, remedial issues that don't really impact much people when the bigger issues going on get tucked away in plain sight. So hopefully in the future, I like to remain idealistic about this, that um, we can address the issue of corporate welfare. It's not something that is a divided partisan issue. Most people agree that corporate welfare is bad. However, it is difficult to bring that up into the mainstream, as the mainstream is controlled by these corporations. With that said, I hope you enjoy your day. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.